Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the latest edition of the World Report. I'm Scott Crowfoot. What's the hottest energy item in the United States? Pipelines. Hollywood leftists are pouring money into Democrat Senate races to thwart the GOP. The same people who dodge taxes imposed by the leaders they so desire. Is the media turning on Barack Obama or simply running cover for Hillary? Our history segment explores the improbable trio that won the Second World War. And now to our top stories. The world is on fire as ISIS terrorists commit widespread genocide in Syria and Iraq. The very same rebels we armed and supported have vowed to attack the United States and will not stop until they raise the jihadi flag over the White House. These killers are the same group Barack Obama called a jayvee team just a few months ago. Add a wide open southern border and we've got a recipe for disaster. Joining us is the Desert Sun's global economist and the World Report senior advisor, Maury Beschloss. Maury, you were born in Nazi Germany under the Nazi regime.
Right.
How would you say that this Islamic radical movement compares to what you experienced in the Nazi regime?
I did not experience. I was involved with it. I make no bones about the fact that I was part of the Nazi youth movement. But it was at a time when Hitler was just getting started. And he was shrewd enough to do it step by step by step. But I would say when you had the full-blown impact of the Holocaust, which came after Germany went to war, and specifically it really got hot after Hitler declared war in the United States, because even then the United States was the only country that could maintain some sort of civility in the world. And then, of course, they went out to get every Jew and send them to death camps, and if they could work for a while, they'd work them to death. Otherwise, they would torture them and kill them.
So now, the main difference is that the ISIS rebels, they're looking to kill anyone that's not Islamic or Muslim.
That's right. That's true.
Where the Germans were specifically after the Jewish people. Yeah. But the tactics are the same, aren't they?
They became the same. Where you have the Revolutionary Guard in Iran, you've got ISIS, you've got the killers. The two organizations that were exactly like ISIS is today were the Gestapo and the SS. The SS was Hitler's army of thugs and murderers that killed Jews indiscriminately, killed babies, killed women, and of course they didn't go in public with it. It seeped out, but they built 12 death camps in Germany and in Poland. See, they were smart enough to say, wait a second, the German people were civilized people, highly technical, one of the top productive populations in Europe at the time. And they didn't want to get people worked up where they would have some emotional positive reaction, especially those that were religious, either Catholics or with the Lutherans. So when my family left, my father had to flee to Cuba overnight. Luckily, he was related by marriage to Governor Lehman of New York, so that's how he got out. But then my mother and my brother and I, we got out a very nice ship called the Manhattan, SS Manhattan, which, by the way, was a sister ship of the St. Louis, which was the Voyage of the Damned, where they wouldn't let them land in Havana, and Roosevelt wouldn't let them land in Miami. And the lucky ones were the ones that got off in England. England took a third, Belgium took a third, and Holland. The ones in Belgium and Holland eventually were murdered by the Nazis.
Now, these are the same people that we armed and supported just a few months ago when we were talking about the Syrian rebels. That was ISIS, when we were trying to take out Bashar al-Assad in Syria. And now these people have taken a huge swath of land in Syria and Iraq, and their caliphate is getting bigger and larger. Our response is to send 130 or 200 advisors?
It defies any kind of discrimination of any sort. It defies even how we were unlucky enough to have a non-leader, and I say that's what he is, a non-leader, totally incompetent to run the country and probably any business. And this is a guy that's running the country at the most dangerous time, because ISIS is now coming, it was like the Nazis. you might as well say the Nazis at their worst are exactly what ISIS is like. Cutting a child in half. I mean, these people are worse than cannibals. They are out to kill anybody that's a Christian, a Jew, or an Assyrian. You know, they have all kind of old line Christian organizations and bases. You have the Assyrians, and then of course you've got the Kurds, and the Kurds. Actually, there are only two really civilized countries in the Middle East today: Kurdistan and Israel. These are people, and isn't that interesting? The most civilized and the most decent people are the ones that are willing to fight, and fight aggressively. Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, the various countries, Qatar, which is supporting Hamas, as you know, and Turkey, which has really gone bad. You know, Turkey at one time.
Erdogan has really changed that country quickly.
Oh, he has. He has done a job. He's a leader.
Do you remember about a year ago when the president said that this is the one man that he gets advice on raising his
Oh, they were
children
big
from?
buddies, yeah. Oh, yeah, they were.
The first person he called in the Middle East after he won the election in 2008 was Erdogan.
Yeah, it's amazing. But here again, it's Turkey has gone from a population of about 30, 40 million at the end of the Second War. They now have about 80 million. You know, the three largest Muslim countries in the Middle East are Iran, roughly about 75, 80 million, Turkey about the same, and Egypt. Now, the best thing that's ever happened for Israel and for the United States is Sisi.
And getting rid of the Muslim Brotherhood,
Oh.
which again, this president, this administration, this government backed the Muslim Brotherhood.
Oh, you see Sisi, you know how he backs them? Against the wall and has them shot.
Right.
I mean, and he's very popular. He's got about a 90% popularity in Egypt today, and he's the guy that's moderating, if I can use that word, between Israel and Egypt. He basically is allied to Israel. Well, from what I hear from a gentleman who used to be a member of the Sûreté, which is a French intelligence agency, very, very effective. He said that Netanyahu and Sisi have become the best of friends, and they're on the phone all the time.
Excellent situation that
It
developed
is.
into. Let's get back to ISIS now. They have looted banks in Iraq. They've got over billions of dollars
sure.
now. They've got the oil fields that they're now controlling. They control a dam where they basically said, if you don't convert to Islam, we can flood the entire country and wipe you out and drown you. How significant do you think these people are now? Can the West deal with them, or is it too late?
Too late. It's too late. The cat's out of the bag. When they got started, they had 800 fighters. 800. They could have wiped them out any time. They came out of Syria. They started off, there's about 100 with British passports and another 100 with American passports. These are fanatics, the worst kind. And they again use the Nazi similarity. I mean, people that are just murderers by nature. And you know how many are part of their military group now? 20,000. They've gone from 800 to 20,000.
And a lot of these splinter groups of Al-Qaeda, they're finding, well, this is a much better team. Let's go join with them. And it's growing exponentially by the day.
Well, you make a very good point. Al-Qaeda was more or less just sort of a surreptitious hit and run type of operation. This is now a military deal. You know, capturing Mosul, the second city of Iraq with a great history. I mean, Mosul goes all the way back to Babylonia, Mesopotamia. They destroyed all the relics that were there for several thousand years. I mean, they are not only the worst scum of the world, they want to destroy everything that reeks of civilization.
And now you look at Hamas firing thousands of rockets into Israel, and all we hear on the news is about the poor innocent civilians that are being killed. What about the Yazidi tribe that is on top of that mountain being starved and basically drenched to death?
You know, the Yazidis are very interesting people. They were one of the first groups that converted to Christianity. And they go back to King Nebuchadnezzar, you know, Daniel and the King Nebuchadnezzar. And Nebuchadnezzar, before he died, he accepted the God of the Jews at that time. He didn't become a Jew, he just accepted the God. And he was really the father of the Desis. And consequently, then when the Christian religion started to flourish in the early first and second centuries, they embraced it as their religion. They're very quiet, they never bothered anybody, but they basically lived and deported themselves in northern Iraq. And
another big concern is that they've taken over Saddam Hussein's chemicals. They've taken over the uranium, which I didn't know that there was any there based on what the leftists have been saying for the past 8 years. There weren't any weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, but evidently there was, and there is, and now ISIS
they had a
controls
nuclear
them too.
reactor. Remember, Menachem Begin in 1981 sent a bombing raid, and the Iranians should have sent him a note of thanks, because that was just at the beginning of the war between Iran and Iraq. And you know, Henry Kissinger said, it's a shame that that war didn't last like the 30-year war in Europe from 1618 to 1648. He said we'd have gotten rid of two bad guys at the same time.
Now, we only have a minute left in this segment. The Nouri al-Maliki has just been pushed out and been replaced, and the Iranian regime embraces that move. That should concern us as well, should it not?
Well, I don't think we had a choice about Maliki. Where do you think he spent all the time when Saddam Hussein was running Iraq? He was living in it. He was an agent of Iran. I think that, but he fouled up. The Iranians didn't feel he was effective, so now get rid of him and get a better guy in there. This whole thing is so disgusting. It's hardly worthy to say a good word about it.
How worried about them attacking the United States are you at this point?
Not at this point. I think we will be attacked from within because we are allowing people to come over our border. I never thought I'd live to see that kind of indifference to who comes over our borders. I think it's political. I really think that Obama and the leftists of his progressive party would like to see people like that come in so that they would eventually vote and keep this element in power indefinitely.
And it is interesting that they let them in through Texas, which that's the one state that the Democrats, if they could ever take over, would basically give them electoral college for the rest of time.
Texas is a swing state. They already own California, so you throw
Illinois, New York.
Well, the electoral colleges start off with Illinois, New York, California, and then throw in Texas. You got about 150 congressional votes right there.
Before you even start.
Before you start, you're finished.
Right. We need to step aside for a brief moment. We'll return with our economy and energy segment, the global outlook, political insider, and the history segment. If you want to watch the show or catch any of our segments, it's simple and free. Just log on to our website, theworldreport.org. And while you're there, remember to like us, recommend us, and leave comments.